Here we go.
Yep.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another podcast from Beacon of Leadership. We got an exciting topic tonight, something that is very important to all of us. I'm looking forward to this discussion and where it goes. We are your Beacon of Leadership team. I'm RJ Horner, Beacon of Life and Leadership. I'm joined by
Curtis Leon, Beacon of Positivity.
And Linda Tilson, Beacon of Team Empowerment.
And we've got a guest who's brought a great topic to us today, Vicki Thorpe, who has brought the topic forth, leading in the family. Vicki, tell people a little bit about yourself and why is this topic so important to you?
Well, this topic is really important to me because I grew up in a very interesting home. I'm just going to use the word interesting. And I recognized that I needed to learn how to, when I started my own family, at first I thought I was going to have this, everything would just turn out. And then I learned that it doesn't just turn out. And I got to learn how to be the leader in my family.
So what do you mean by that? Because again, I come from a place where my family dynamic as a child was good, but then life happens, you know what I mean? Divorces, breakups, family turmoil. So by the time I got to a teenager or a young adult, we didn't quite gel as a family, right? So I didn't have a good example to live by, as far as, being a family unit and working towards or together being a family. So what do you mean by, you had to learn, you had to figure it out?
Yeah. So my mom couldn't have any children after having three of us, three girls. My mom and dad wanted to have a boy, and the doctor messed things up with the miscarriage. So she wasn't able to have other children. So she adopted my brother, who's French Canadian, handsome man. And that was when I started questioning whether I belonged in my family or not. Just kind of really interesting that happened. And then he came with lots of challenges that took a lot of attention and time, and it took everything my mom had, so that she didn't have a lot of patience. And I'm the oldest, and I actually remember cooking Thanksgiving dinner when I was 9 years old.
Oh my.
Yeah, no one else to cook the turkey because she's in the hospital with my brother. And I don't know where my dad was at the time. He might have been at work or whatever. I don't know what he was doing. But I remember trying to figure out how to cook the turkey.
That's amazing. That is because I mean, I've got some other questions, and this could have gone any way. I was going to ask this question later on, but this boils it down to the question: who leads in any family, right? Because I mean, shouldn't it be the parents who lead? But here you are having to step up and be there and lead in your family. It's at an amazing young age.
Yeah. I don't think that's super healthy because I didn't know what I was doing. But I thought I did. And I had my siblings that resisted me leading, and it did not go so well. But it's really interesting. So I actually have been coaching families for 22 years. I've coached thousands of families. And what's really interesting is anybody in the family can lead. And it's really about, what's needed at the time and what kind of change needs to happen in the family. And that's what I found.
Absolutely. I think it's the same way. You never know what role you need to play. So let's talk about that then, because I mean, there's so many roles in a family, and you've just said that anybody in that family unit can lead. But so, I mean, the typical leader in the families should be the mother and the father, if they're both there, of course. And so, what are the expectations of a mother and a father to lead, and how that's supposed to work out? Or
that's a really good. I think as a society, we have all kinds of opinions about what that looks like or what it should look like, and not all of it is healthy and really works. What I see is just from what I'm learning about, and I'm still learning, like I always think that I'm going to be learning till I'm dead.
Absolutely. I think
Yeah.
I always say, look, I'm gonna learn something new on my deathbed. So
Yeah.
I feel you there. I believe it. And I believe we're supposed to.
Yeah.
We're supposed to continue to learn.
Yeah. And then the trick is applying it. So, the thing I started recognizing from a pretty young age is that we come with different patterns and we usually go automatically to certain patterns. And there's societal patterns, there's family patterns, and some of the patterns really don't work. I'm kind of a pattern interrupter. And when I notice something doesn't work, that people don't always like me, and whether it's in the family or whatever else, in the end, I get appreciated. But I remember one time my mom said to me that this is when I'm an adult, and I needed to have a straightforward conversation with her because she had health issues. And so I'd lie to her about that. If I was sick, I would lie to her, not telling her I was sick because I didn't want her to tell me how to do my health,
Mhm.
because I knew how I wanted to do it. And I knew if I didn't do it her way, it would be a confrontation. And so I went, this lying isn't working for me. So I went to have a conversation with her to recreate the relationship in a healthier way. And I was like, okay, Mom, I don't want to lie to you. I want to respect the way you do your health and have you respect the way I do my health. And it's okay that we do it in a different way. It was immediate upset, but she didn't tell me right away. It's the next day, she calls me on the phone and tells me she can never talk to me again. And never looked like with my sister, it had been 5 years, and my brother, it had been 3 years that she hadn't talked to him. So it
Wow.
looked like never, because I didn't learn. I mean, she could be very loud and confrontational, but if you did it back, any kind of confrontation, you were out of her life because she didn't know how to handle it. And
Wow.
then so I found some reasons why that's the case, but it doesn't really matter. That's not what matters, but that's what needed to change. And what I realized in the moment, I grieved for 24 hours. And then I came around and went, okay, she can say what she's going to do in our relationship, but I get to say too. And I went, she's my mom. I'm going to be in a relationship with her. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to call her. I'm going to text her. I'm going to let her know I love her. And I'm going to stand for the relationship being more authentic. And
Oh,
it took her a week.
listen, I totally
Yeah.
understand that. Now I wouldn't go so far as to disowning a member of my family because I believe in healthy arguments. And
Yeah.
arguments can go to the extreme, right? They can. But your
Yeah.
family, you expect them to always be there for you and with you, right? My
Yeah.
daughter and I, we have some intense, deep fights, right? But it's not a fight like I hate you. It's a fight that I don't agree with you right now. And I have the right to disagree. And I don't like you right now. And leave me alone. You know what I mean? And it gets intense, it
Yeah.
gets heated. And we'll go for days without talking to each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's not a hatred there. It's just like, leave me alone. I'll brood. I'll have my anger. I'll feel the way I feel. But trust me, usually in a few days or so, we we don't discuss what happened, right? We don't get into that because, well, again, everybody has a right to go through that. That's emotion. That's heated emotion. And my daughter's very much like me. She's an emotional person. The emotions
Uh-huh.
carry on. Let them carry on. But we also know it has to peter out. It has to fade away. But by not talking to each other, we let each other brood, have our emotional draining, you know what I mean? And then we just sometimes she'll apologize, sometimes I'll apologize. Sometimes we just go on about our lives as if that didn't happen, right? So
Hmm.
I can't understand the extreme of I hate you, I never want to talk to you again. So how did that work out for you?
Well, because it hadn't just happened to me. I realized it wasn't personal.
Wasn't it?
It felt personal at the time,
Right.
very personal. But then after I had time to kind of reflect on it, and I took my 24 hours to just grieve, then I could actually step back and go, okay, she did this to my brother and my other sister, so it's not personal. And then when I get curious and wonder about it, then I actually start to get some answers as to, oh, I wonder what's really going on here. She can't handle, she can give out confrontation, but she can't handle it coming back. And for her, how that occurs is that she feels it's dangerous. And so her way of dealing with danger is cut it off. So then when I could see it wasn't personal, and then I could see, okay, what do I want to, I could step into, okay, now what do I want to create with her? I want to create that she knows she's loved.
Beautiful.
And I feel like for me, love transcends everything.
Absolutely. I think I even read that today where there's something about you can lead from a place of understanding or something like that, but leading from a place that just erases all the, like, it just comes from a place of acceptance. You guys are on the same field because no matter what, the love is there, right? And I think that's what we have to do with our families.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the roles again. Like I said, we have parents, right? We all of us are parents here. I will say that as a step parent, I had to learn what leadership in the family looked like, right? I didn't understand. Like my wife, those are her children, right? Automatically, as a mother, I think you come with a nurturing nature. The minute, probably even before they're born, but the minute that child is in your arms, it's all like that child is my life. I do everything for that child. But I came to my kids, now they were at a young age, right? I think, but when I got together with my wife, they were 4 and almost 6. So I mean, these kids have been in my life forever, right? So I had to learn, I think, how to be a parent. And so it was a difficult role. It was something I had to learn. But for our parents on the line, I'm going to start with Curtis, because Curtis, you bonded with your daughter right from the start. Talk about that for a minute, what that was like.
That was awesome, actually. I was, well, the whole birth, we were actually in the room, and my wife actually had to have a C-section. But the most amazing part was that when I saw her being held, we locked eyes and I just knew I was a dad. It was like super awesome. We had that little connection by looking at each other. And then during the process of premature babies, they get a thing called kangaroo care. So basically, I'd be shirtless, and my daughter would be like just in her diaper, and she would sit on my chest. So we always have that bond as a parent. It was pretty cool. And then my wife, obviously being a mom, she did the same thing too. So we both have quite a unique bond with our children. And we also got to learn how to be better parents in the hospital because they gave us courses and stuff. So we have a bit more of an instruction guide, I guess, because of having a premature child. It changes everything, right?
Right. They want to make sure you understand how to care for them and
it's a little more involved stuff, right? You got to be more careful about things and watch for certain things and make sure everything's okay, right? Because sometimes premature babies have health issues that there. So something's come
so
up.
do you think that nurturing that kangaroo care that you're talking about, do you think that led to your daughter like being more healthy, being more
100%
coming out of it earlier? Because she did come out of it quite well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, she's awesome. That's one of the recommendations they have in the hospital. I guess someone at some point thought of doing this and they've implemented it, because we went to McMaster Hospital and they're always like testing things, experimenting, like how does this work, always like seeing how things make it better, right?
Yeah, it's an innovative hospital, right?
Yeah,
like they're a university hospital too, right? So.
University hospital, and so they teach and they learn and they always try to improve on stuff. So it's pretty amazing place to. It's actually, I think it's the number one. Well, I guess next to 6 kids, it's the next best hospital for children.
And so, Linda, what did your husband have that kind of like again to a mother? I think it comes naturally. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But did your husband have like a bonding experience with your kids early on in their lives?
I think it was a learned experience for a while because he's a heavy sleeper. So I would take care of my daughter, do the nursing. And so he'd sleep away and he'd sleep the best in his life, you know. And I just would take care of things. And so it was good. So it was as she got more independent and older, where he could sit and read to her or do experiences with her. So I would say that his experience was stronger as she was older and past that breakable, that stage where you become this human little person and have this little personality. And I will have to tell this story here because it's one of those ones that a mom will tell. Well, I was in between jobs and she must have been like 3 or 4. And he decided, I'm just going to take her to Disneyland. He just like, I'm going to take her to Disneyland, right? So they went on a trip without me to Disneyland. And I remember asking him on the phone, well, did you, make sure she got her shower and fed and all of that? Oh, yeah, we just took her in the pool. So the joke is, you just put them in the pool and, and most people will be like, oh my gosh, but you know what? That's what dads do. Dads are fun. They get it done, but it's not the way I would do it. I'd be having her be in the shower. No, just throw her in the pool, have a good time. And so, a whole different experience. And I just think that was like a really cool thing just to want to take her and spend time with her. And they just had that special bond in that way. And to this day, she, she's 21. She loves to wear his t-shirts and be close to him. And they talk and they just have this, nice father-daughter bond. And so, it comes at different times. For me, it was more like, the instant nurturing, mothering thing that was there from day one. There's, they may be 21 and 13, but they're still, these people to me. It's just that, the kind of parenting I do has changed over time.
Absolutely. And thank you for that, because again, so like I said, I had to learn, right? Being a stepfather. Now, my wife and I clashed early on because they're her kids, right? We've had that argument. Well, they're my kids, and how can you talk to my kids that way? And I said, here's how I had to change her thought process. And don't get me wrong, we went through several arguments before this happened, but I said, look, how can you expect, if we're building this relationship and it seems like it's becoming something, how can you expect that I'm not going to be like, these kids don't want to listen to me, they don't have respect for me. How can you expect that I'm not going to have words with them or not going to speak to them in a harsh manner? If they don't listen, what am I to do then? I'm supposed to just say, oh, it's okay then, right? So we had to have some heated battles to figure out what is my role as a stepfather, right? Do I have the right to discipline them in any way? Do I have the right to tell them just go to bed, or things like that? The things that a parent does to keep your children in line. It seemed like it wasn't my place to do so. So I had to learn my place in the world. So I will say this, my kids and I, we've gone through some battles in the years. And look, my kids are now adults and they respect me wholly. You know what I mean? But it's been a learned process for all of us. And I think I'm in a place where I've got it right. You know what I mean? I respect my kids as people. I let them make their own decisions. I help guide their decisions. I'm here to offer them some potential answers and let them make their own decisions. But like I said, that's been a long time coming. It's been a learned process on what is the right thing to do? How's the right thing to treat them? I even actually used to say at one point, look, because I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I was partly responsible for their upbringing, right? And I even said to them, look, I will be hopefully the toughest person you ever have to deal with. Hopefully the most difficult conversations you've had in your life are with me, so that now you can go out and you can handle the world. You can talk to people and you can figure things out because you've had to deal with me. So I was tough on my kids. There's no doubt about that. But I think I've made them stronger. I've made them better, and I've made them quality adults. I think that was my role. And that's as a stepfather. But I had to learn my place. I had to teach them their place in this whole dynamic that we had to build.
RJ, when you say so I have a stepfather as well. And he came into my life at the age of 20. Well, actually came in before that. It's an interesting story, but we won't go into that part because that's not the critical part. But when you're talking about the difficulties around it, because I did end up, even though I was an adult, I didn't end up needing to come and live with them for a period of time because I had a concussion, broke my jaw, and I needed to be taken care of. And it was interesting because he had rules, and they were, he was very good at explaining what his rules are, and he did not if you stepped over it, he was very clear on that didn't work. So, yeah. And it was funny because my brother also lived with them for a period of time, and my brother hated him at first, hated him. And it was because my brother wasn't used to following rules. He's used to just doing his own thing. And so when the rules came down, my stepfather got blamed for needing to follow the rules. I mean, he had 20 something traffic tickets, and he was not going to graduate from high school because he wasn't attending high school. They took, no car privileges. He had to be at school, and he had to get up and get to school, and he had to stay at school until it was time to come home. And he ended up graduating from high school. But that year was like hard. There were lots of arguments. But after that, my brother respected him so much, respected him more than my father, because my father didn't set down boundaries, but my stepfather did. And that's what had my brother turn out.
Hey, listen, my like my daughter and I, we clash, you know what I mean? Because we're so much alike. That's why we clash. My son and I, we clashed because he didn't like the rules, but I had certain expectations, right? So, but
Yeah.
I will say this, he totally respects my opinion. He respects my guidance because I was so tough on him when it mattered most. And he, I'm sure he didn't see it that way at the time, right? As a 15-year-old, what the hell are you doing? Why are you telling me this? I don't have to listen to you. You know what I mean? Those things. But now look at it, but we have a great relationship, right? So let me ask you this. Having said that, we talked about rules and having to set rules for our kids. Is there a specific way to lead? Is there a guideline for that?
Well, that's a really good question. So there is a guideline, but the biggest guideline I would say to follow is what works for you. Like the rules are to protect you as a parent and protect the children. That's not just the children, but it's to protect both of you to have your life's work.
I love that answer. And I think that kind of covers it all, right? I want to hear from the other parents because, again, look, we're coaches. We're all coaches here. And we said it already today is every person is different. We have to, lead each person according to their own values, their own actions, their own intentions. So what are your guys' opinions? How do you manage? What are the rules? How do you determine what the rules are?
I've been thinking about all the dynamics because, team empowerment dynamics. And so I'm looking at every structure as a team, right? And, one of the things that comes to mind, because each person is an individual and they have choices of how they do things and what their preferences are. Well, when you say that anyone in the family can lead, what about, who leading or who is doing the leading might be doing it with their strengths. So when you take a typical father and mother role, husband and wife role. So I'll just take my example, right? So I've been married for 25 plus years. So, and my husband and I, we're both firstborn. We're both in the same career. We're both accountants. So, so the whole idea of leading and guiding, that comes naturally to both of us because of the birth order that we came from in our own families. Well, there's times where it would be great to say, well, mom's going to make your dinner, mom's going to help you with the homework. But then I'm going to be like, well, I've worked all day on something, and our son needs some help with the math, and our other son needs help with some writing. So if I'm going to tag team it here, then I'm going to say, okay, I'm the one that's probably going to be the best suited to do the writing, so I'm going to go help that son, and then my husband's going to go help the younger one with his math, and we're going to do it divide and conquer. And it's we do have to go through that a lot to try and figure out if there's a family issue going on, like with our extended family. I'm usually the one that gets sent in to have the conversations and to massage and get people opened up and communicating. And, so I'm that arbitrator or maybe mediator or sense of direction, calming people down, whatever. And so I usually get in to do that, but we're needing something where we need some strength and some foundation and some consistency in a process or an improvement we're building or something. Well, my husband's going to jump in. He's the foundational piece. He's the calming force. He's the planner when it comes to building something or doing an improvement. You don't want me running your home improvements. I have no sense of direction. So anyway, so it just depends for us. It isn't even about gender. It's not even about birth order. Sometimes it's just who's most suited. But we do go through that line of thinking about what makes sense for our children at that particular time. Now, there's times where I just said that I usually get put in when there's a communication breakdown to try and fix it. Well, sometimes I'm too much of a fixer. So I need someone softer to come into the conversation, that foundational person. So my husband and my daughter will be a better matchup to do that. Otherwise, we might have two people going at it and we're both going to win. And so just knowing that about our personalities and how we communicate and how sometimes you need that calming person. So it changes. It changes from any given moment. You go with the ebbs and flows. So leaders know when to show up and take care of something, but they also know when to hold back and let other people come in with their strengths and do things. So
The best leaders do, absolutely, yeah. And it's wonderful that you've got that team dynamic where every one of you can step up. We talked about, mother, father, who's, they know their roles or they should, and especially if they've talked through it, right? But brothers and sisters can help each other out too and be there for each other and say, you know what, or maybe you should go to mom, or maybe you should talk to dad about that because he'd be the best one to help you. Or maybe they help each other and help figure out their problems and walk through each other's problems. So Curtis, you're a single parent, like you're a parent of a single child. Tell us how that works out. What's the best way to manage your young girl and
we just basically have routine for morning and evening, and then she pretty much, if she does something wrong, she loses certain things, and she knows that if she does certain behavioral things, she's like, I don't get this. And the funny thing is, she knows if she does something wrong, it's like, oh, I guess I lost that today. And then it's like, oh yeah, we did have that rule. Because sometimes we forget, right? And the kids remember. Overall, pretty good. My wife and I generally discuss things, and we'll figure out what the best route is. Because a lot of times we both have similar. My wife has like more knowledge about kid stuff because she went to university for childcare thing. So
EC?
Degree? No, not EC. It's the difference. It's like for behavioral, kids behavioral.
Okay. Child behavior. Yep.
Yeah. So she knows what child behavior stuff is. I have no clue. Like, oh, let's go have some fun, right? So she always gets mad because I always have fun. So I'm the fun parent.
But honestly, there's a dynamic that you guys have set in place, right? For your wife, who creates the rules and creates the guidelines, but so let me ask you this then, because your wife sets guidelines, she has expectations. We obviously hear that London manages them well. She knows if I do this, I'm going to lose this, or I misbehave. I know I'm going to be punished by this method. So does she try and run to you being the fun daddy and trying to smooth that over, or try to, wiggle around, getting her way?
And sometimes she tries, but we both, because my wife and I both talk about it. It's like, hey, she asked me this question. I don't know if she do this. I'm like, oh, let me ask mom first. And I'll ask my wife, and it's like, oh no, we're not doing this. We're doing this. It's like, okay, so no. So we communicate, make sure we're on the same page. Otherwise, kids do have that technique of like, hey, if mom says no, let me go to dad. We all say yes. But we knew that ahead of time. So we kind of like, okay, if she asks one question, let's make sure that we both know that this is the thing we're doing. Because we didn't want that, like, oh, if mom says no, dad will say yes type situation.
Mhm.
So we figured that early enough, and she knows if it's 8:30 in the evening, it's no electronics, jammies on, brush your teeth, and then maybe you can sit down and or usually have a snack and then brush your teeth, and then it's bedtime at 9, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll read a book or two or three sometimes, depends. But yeah, so we have a routine
No,
there.
I love having the routine. It certainly sets, that's a guideline in and of itself, right? Knowing that this is the pattern, this is what we have to do, this is what goes on at this time. I have this much time to do this sort of thing. Because, and I will say, you know what? I know that kids can do that backdoor tricks, you know what I mean? Especially I had to learn that one as a stepfather. It happened a few times before I finally figured out, okay, you know what? Maybe what I say, because again, I'm the man with the rules, right? I had guidelines, they needed to follow them. So it happened a few times where all of a sudden my wife was telling me something that she did with them, and I'm thinking, but I already told them this. So finally I'm like, you know what, I'm talking to your mother, I'm going to tell her what I've just told you. So I'd call, usually when something goes on, I call the wife right away, because it's like, look, you need to know what I've just told them so that we're on the same page, so that they don't come and try to manipulate their way around into their favorable outcomes, right?
Mhm. Yep, for sure. Good. That's right. I think we all probably have seen that happen through being here.
So then that's another question I had on here. So how do we manage? Like, I've just given a technique, but how do we manage the differing opinions? Because like Linda and her husband, you know what? You and your wife, you come from different backgrounds. I don't know, Vicky, what you've had to deal with. How do we deal with the differing opinions or the differing ideas we have in raising our children? Um, how do we manage that without getting in each other's faces and say, well, I told them this. Well, I told them this. Well, is this what's gonna, you know what I mean? So how do we avoid those arguments and still do what's best to lead that family unit?
I don't think you do avoid the arguments. You
Come
just
up and
lean
deal
in.
with it, you
Yeah, you just lean into it and you have those conversations when they come up, because you can't perceive I mean, there's some things you can plan ahead and figure out, but there's going to be lots of things that you have no idea are going to come up that come up.
Absolutely. Lead every situation as it occurs. I think that's what life is about, no matter what. So you can only deal with each situation as it occurs. And but so having that conversation and knowing that this is how we're going to handle this instance. So you have to have those conversations every time.
Be
Mhm.
adaptable, right?
Sorry, Curtis.
Well,
Be adaptable and be able to pivot like when you need to. Like as a leader, like you, as parents, we have to learn how to adapt to how the kids get. As they get older, we got to adapt to new rules, new situation with each child, right? And then sometimes we might be this way, but then sometimes we got to pivot because the kids change and they have different rules come up. Like when we were kids, there's like, you didn't you write lines on the thing if you did something wrong or did spell mistake, you make it spell the word out. Now it's like, oh yeah, whatever, carry on, right?
And so having said that, look, you have a 8-year-old.
Yep.
So she probably, like, she knows the rules, she knows her expectations.
Yeah.
But I think come high school, you're going to get a different dynamic going on when you
Yep.
got peer pressure, you got friends, you got maybe even boys in the picture. There's going to be those, well, no, I want this, and maybe some foot stamping and things like that. How are you going to manage come that time?
But I think that's where it starts now, right? You set the foundation now, the rules and expectations as parents. And then as they get older, they will know, like, okay, if I do this, I get in trouble. If I do this, I may have this consequence or I may not, right? So I think it's all about the foundation. Like if you are strict, right, or have rules and the kids follow the rules, and you give them habits and stuff to routines, and then they just know. They just come in and they do certain things. Like she comes home, she puts her stuff away, and then she goes watch TV for till dinner. At dinner time, she'll eat dinner, and then she'll go back watch YouTube or something for half an hour or something, right? So like it's a routine. It's just when kids get routines, they know what the structure is, and they don't really deviate too much. Even on weekends, the same thing happens. It's like, what the heck? She'll get up, I do the same thing in the morning. It's like, wow, interesting.
Love that. You had something to add, Vicky?
Yeah. So it's like you're talking about the structure. There's a communication structure too. And oftentimes we don't, like one of the things my daughter, when she was like 8 to 10, our communication structure was like this. A battle. Everything was a battle. And because we were both pretty stubborn about how things needed to go. And I knew as a leader of my family, I needed to, you know, I'm older, I need to switch that around and figure out how to deal with it. And it was just a simple tweak. What I ended up doing is I would say, okay, you know, you need to get your homework done. You need to sit down and do it. I'm here to support you. You let me know what support you need, and I'll come and check on you. And then, you know, instead of trying to force it down, like if you just do this, it'll be so much easier. You can hurry and get done. You can go out and play with your friends. Instead of doing that, I just like, it's up to you. How do you want me to support you? And it just turned the whole thing around that like she knew I was trusting her to figure it out. I'm a resource. And then what was really great is I didn't kill her spirit of her being determined and stubborn and all of that. She took that into when she was a teenager, and no, if she wanted something, she did not let anybody deter her from getting it.
Right, because that's what I was going to say next is not only did you do that, you empowered her, but you gave her a sense of her own responsibility, right? You bred in her that, look, okay, here's what you have to do. It's up to you to go do it. So that when, like you said, when those teenage years comes around and she wants something, well, it's my responsibility. If I want to make it happen, if it's going to happen, like if it's to be, it's up to me. So what do I have to do? And then knowing I have support in making this happen if I need it. I think that's a big key right there. Knowing that, look, as parents, that's our role, I think, is we're there to support our kids' growth, whatever that may be. Now, there are a lot of parents out there who have an idea of what their kids' life should be, right? You need to be a doctor like me. No, you need to go in law because that's what we do in this family, right? So they have their kids' lives mapped out for them. Well, we all know how that works out, right? There's usually some rebellion at some point, whether it comes in teenage years, whether it comes in, you know, adulthood, young adulthood, when they find partying and everything else, or they're, you know, halfway through university and go, no, man, this is not my career. And they drop out of university and go do something else, right? At some point, all of that planning is going to fall apart for most people anyways. But by setting the path and teaching them that the expectations are on you, right? Whatever you want to do, you have to make it happen. We're here to help. We're help guide you, help figure it out, but it's up to you. And I think we've led our kids that way. I know most of the people on the panel have, you know, so Linda, you've got 2 boys and a girl. And they're both well, I know your boys are active. I don't know about your daughter because I never see her in the picture, by the way. I mean, I guess being a grown up, she's you know, doing her own thing at this point. But tell us how you've worked all that out.
Oh, well, I think you actually describe what I do as far as, you know, you talk about, you know, setting what you would like your children to do. I don't do that. I've listened to them say, I have an interest in hair, or I have an interest in becoming a pilot, or I would like to be a chef. Well, then when they tell me things like that, I'm like, okay, let's go meet someone who does hair, or let's go get in that airplane and go fly it and see what that's like. And these 3 things I just said are things that I have done with all 3 of my kids. And, you know, that whole thing about like when you're sitting with them and you're saying, I'm not going to do it for you. I'm here to support you If you have any questions, you need help in your strategy, but it's on you. You decide when you're going to do your homework. I think I have that conversation at least once a week with my youngest, because he's very capable of doing his things,
Hello?
but he has other priorities that he would like to take on. And so we started having that conversation. I said, I don't think it's my responsibility to do your homework and get the grade. I think that's you. And then that's when we start having that conversation. So I've got that part of the spectrum, but then I've also, got the older children too, that they're finding their way. And I'll have to say that when my son told me what his major was going to be, I had no part in it. I mentioned that both my husband and I do accounting, right? That's what we do for our paid profession first, right? And so out of the blue, he just decided, I think I'm going to go into accounting. Dad does it and he likes it and it's good enough for dad. So I'm going to do that. And I'm like, whoa. So, it happens on its own organically. If you let your children explore, you empower them to make good choices. And, when times get tough, they just need to know that you're available for guidance, for instruction. And so really, I frown when I see parents trying to live through their children, through sports, through careers. I'm just like, at the end of the day, when we're not around and that child goes into that career, and whether it goes well or it doesn't go well, they're the ones that have to live that life. And so why would you want to push what your desires are on your child? What you want is for them to pick that thing, to explore and get to know whether they like it or not, and then be able to stand on their own 2 feet. And then when they have children, repeat. That's the cycle that we want to bring to the table and speak to, because the whole deciding what your kids are going to do and pushing that only causes undue pressure. It causes resentment. It causes all these bad things. And so, I like I said, I frown when people try to live through their kids. It's the other way around. They should be living for themselves.
Yeah, and then we're setting a good example for them, right? No matter what, we're trying to set a good example. By the way, Vicky, that was our little London, and we call her our little London because she always comes to visit us during the show. So we give her a little wave and a hello, and that's Curtis's daughter, by the way. So
Yeah.
we
Probably close
appreciate
to
that.
time, so she comes
Yeah.
in.
Yep, we appreciate it. So, like I said, we set examples, and I had to learn through my kids. It was a learning process. There was quite the curve there, I must say. But now I think I've got it fairly well. You know what I mean? I'm a good leader, I think, in general, but I'm also a good leader in my family. And what I mean by that is I'm Uncle Rob. You know what I mean? My nieces, my nephews, they look up to me. Hopefully my grandkids, when they come, will look up to me as well and want to be around me. I think I've set the boundaries, and I'd love to believe that we're open. And we'll talk about that in a minute too, because you're about to become a grandma, I know, soon. But as Uncle Rob, like I've asked all my nieces and nephew the same question, usually around the same time when they go through their confirmation. You know what I mean? They're at that age. They're about 13. They're starting to grow into their own, and that's when I start to ask. So, what do you want to do with your life? How do you see your life unfolding? Now, that doesn't mean you have to plan it all out right at 13, but what do you imagine for yourself? Like my one, my oldest niece, she decided early on she was going to help teach kids. You know what I mean? She was going to, she didn't know what that was going to look like, and now she's a French teacher, and so she knew she was going to help empower kids. And then my other niece, she decided early on she was going to be some sort of designer. And so the last few years, that's all she's been talking about. She goes and, sources things online. She's also sort of a party host. So, I think I see a whole business wrapped around her building that, party planning, designing, event sourcing, so I see a whole business going on there. Now my other niece is just reaching her confirmation. So we haven't had that conversation yet, but it's on my mind because I know she's 13. We're going through her confirmation next week or in another month. And so the conversation has to happen, right? I want to know what she wants to do so I can help guide her through that and be there. Look, these are my nieces. And so but at the same time, they're important to me. I want to be Uncle Rob and I want to set a good example and just be there to guide them, whatever they need, whatever answers they need to figure out, and help to empower them. In other words, let them do it. They know what they want. How can we make it happen for you? So I think that's what I mean by setting the example. And like I said, I would love for those grandparents years. My kids are 27 and 26. Neither one has a solid relationship as of yet. So I don't know how soon the grandparent thing is coming along. But I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I do want to see little ones in our family come around very soon. So you are about to experience that. All the blessings and good luck with that, because you did mention that your daughter is going through a pregnancy right now. Tell us what that's like and what you as a mother to a mother, how is that working out and how do you expect that to work out?
It's been an interesting process because I find that, she turns to me and there's times when she turns to me that I know she needs to be turning to her husband. And so, like one of the things she said with this birth, she wants me out there and I'm like, okay, I can come out there, but she says, well, why don't you do the Lamaze class with me or a hypnotism class with me? I said, no, that's for you and your husband to do because he needs to have a part in the birth that you guys develop together. And so it's been an interesting process because part of me is like, yeah, I want to do that. But then so I'm listening for, okay, how can I support that relationship with, the two of them in developing more powerfully during this whole process of having a baby? And how can I support their growth and development as parents instead of taking over? Part of me wants to take over, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talked about that pre-show. And so look, like you said, your kids are 31 and 30, but as we mentioned, they're still our babies, right? It doesn't matter the age. So here you are, your baby is having a baby and you want to be there and step in for the whole thing because again, you want to take care of your children no matter what the age. And look, here she is relying on her mom still, you know what I mean? At this, like at 31, you're supposed to be taking care of yourself, right? You don't need your mom anymore, but yet because you've set that up, she still needs that. She still wants that. She still reaches out for that.
Well, we all need each other. Like I actually have people that are older that I have mentor me because I don't know how to do the grandmother stage yet. So I look around and go, okay, what kind of grandma do I want to be? Who could I have help mentor me in that?
And that's perfect because we talk about how we learn from others. We model ourselves. Look, we're setting good examples for our kids. We take our examples from our grandparents and people who we've watched for, 20, 30, 40 years and how they treated us as kids or how they treated their grandkids and whatnot. So we follow by the examples that people set for us. And I think that's the whole process of life, right? We set a good example, we follow good examples, and hopefully those examples are good, right? Our models are chosen well is all we can expect.
Oh, I think we can expect more because our automatic is either to choose what was done that we like, that we see that our parents did, or choose the opposite. But then there's like this whole other space of actually creating something that's beyond that. And that's where I think real leadership comes in, is where you recognize that, well, doing the same thing isn't quite what I want, and doing the opposite's not what I want. Now, what else is out there? And then that's where true leadership comes, is when you're actually reaching beyond what you've seen or know to create something else that's even better.
Absolutely. One of the things I say is I don't accept the status quo. In other words, it can't be the same old, same old. It can't be these are the rules and these is what you have to follow. Every scenario is different. We pivot, we alter, we go with the flow and figure out. Look, life is all about figuring out, right?
Yep.
I follow John Maxwell, and one of the things I just heard yesterday was you will always be tested. That's what life is about. You have to go through a trial, get it right. If you don't get it right, you're going to have to go through it again. Right. So we're always going to be, I don't care how old you are. John Maxwell, like I said, he's in his 70s, but he's still being tested. He still has things to learn. He still has to adapt and go with the flow because something he's going to experience today, he didn't know yesterday.
Mhm.
So
I was gonna
go ahead.
jump in and because I'm just was excited about what you said, Vicky, about it isn't always about you do what was done before or you do the opposite. You create your new reality, that new direction or path, and you do it just stepping into it and see what if can happen. If I do this, what can I create and have happen? And when you look to doing it that way, and you're not paying attention to all the external things of people saying, well, no, you can't do that. It can't be done. Not listening to those voices, but listening to your own internal messaging. And you might do something that somebody says couldn't be done, or that you're not going to be able to do it as quick and as fast. It'll take forever. And then you go out and you prove them wrong anyway. So it's just about being convicted in who you are and taking that leap and seeing what happens. Because in my book, I always think about what's the best thing that can happen. I don't sit there and think about what's the worst thing that can happen to me. Because if I don't always look that way, I would never do anything that I do because I'd be so worried about what someone's going to think about me, falling on my face and failing. And so I'd rather just go see what could happen and pleasantly surprise myself. So if you don't know already, I'm pretty encouraging and dynamic when it comes to let's go try this. I'm a little bit of a bull in the china shop type of attitude, but yet I got this nurturing side where I'm always thinking about how is it going to impact the people around me. So I do care what people's thoughts are, but they're not the ones that I listen to that prevent me from trying to step out and do something, especially if it's not even in my comfort zone. I've learned how to push through that. And it doesn't always feel good, but imagine you push through and you get to do this one thing that you never thought you'd ever do. The feeling is so much better than that feeling if you don't even try it and regret.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that touches on a point. I asked earlier on in the show, how do we get it right? And really what it boils down to is we get it right by getting it wrong. You know what I mean? We go trial and error and try this out and damn, it didn't work. Yeah. What do I do now? Because usually you'll figure out the answer somewhere along the path. And so I love, go ahead, Curtis.
Oh, I'm just agreeing with you, RJ. It is true. We do make mistakes and we just try to learn the best we can and do better next time for sure.
Listen, we learned this in early education. We haven't learned that by kindergarten. It's reinforced in grade 1. It's reinforced in grade 2. Make a mistake, right? You can always correct it. Yeah. That's what life's about. And they try to teach us that. Look, I don't care how much we're doing math, how much we're doing reading, how much we're doing, all those things we're learning in school. The idea is we're learning to make mistakes so we can learn from our mistakes. And that's what life is about. It's what family's all about. It's what leadership is all about. I love where this conversation has gone. Now we're approaching an hour. And I'm going to tell you something. We've talked about a few things I have on my list. I still have several different topics I would love to discuss. So we mentioned this earlier, Vicky. If we got to the hour point and we had more to discuss, we were going to invite you back. And I would love to see you back and have further conversations on leadership in the family. Because look, we talk about leadership. We love leadership. But that family unit that's where it's important, right? Okay, yeah, we at work and in our jobs, in our careers, that's who we spend the most time with, right? We spend 8, 10 hours a day sometimes in our job and in our roles with the people we work with. But the people who are important to us, the people who matter to us, the people who are close to us, that's our family. That's the ones we're supposed to be taking care of. That's the ones we're supposed to be nurturing and working with to help guide them. So I love where we've gone with this leadership in the family and leadership in that unit and that dynamic. I have several different topics we could discuss on this leadership in the family because again, it is important. It really is a great topic to discuss. So I would love to invite you out again. Do we have final thoughts for our panel out there? Do we have anything you'd like to say to Vicky for bringing this topic or something that's come up today?
Thanks for coming out, Vicky. It's good to see you. I think it's the first time I've met you. I think you're pretty awesome. And congratulations on being a grandparent. That's awesome. Next chapter in your life.
Yep. Thanks, Curtis.
And for me, I'm really appreciative that you came out to have this topic with us, because as you were talking about the relationship that you shifted with your mother, I thought, some people take their whole life to figure that out, and to be able to teach people the skills in what you did. I could recognize exactly what you did and why you did it, but to take that process, that story of why you decided to become authentic, why you decided to put the boundaries, how you communicated them in a way that was loving, because people get really wrapped around that, the person's stuck in their ways. I can't communicate with them, and okay, they're not going to talk to me. I'm done with them. You had a different approach to it, and it was highly effective. And so I would like to break that down into the steps of why you did each of the different actions, the results that you got, and how other people can recreate that, because it was powerful, because I was doing it in my head. And I know that it would take at least an hour to really take that one conversational thread and break that down into what I just described. So I would love it if you would come back, and if we could do that as one of the follow-up shows where we could actually take that specific dynamic right there and do that.
Linda, I would love to do that. And especially since the results that came out of it were like critical and miraculous.
Oh yeah, they were. They were definitely that. So thank you for entertaining and saying yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are different ways that could have come out. And you know what? You took the empowering road. You took ownership, right? And that, I think, is the biggest thing. So amazing for that. So again, I think that's pretty much it for today. Anyways, I see us coming back. I see a lot of potentially different conversations here. Vicky, I'm so glad you came to us and brought this topic forward, because it's powerful, and there's a lot to be discussed, a lot of ways that we could be there for our audience, who are not only, they're leaders, they're trying to, set up their own path, or they're trying to be elevated in their work life. They're trying to step up as leaders, but let's not forget and let's not neglect that life that really is very important. All of us, I think, we do a good job here on our panel of managing our work life, managing a business on top of that, but still paying attention to that very important element, which is our family unit. So that was Vicky, and thank you for your time, Vicky Thorpe. It's been amazing, and we look forward to talking to you and sharing more about this with you very soon. So once again, I'm RJ Horner, Beacon of Life and Leadership, with my team.
Curtis Leon, Beacon of Positivity. Don't forget to hit the like button, ring the bell, and subscribe to our channel.
And Linda Tilson, Beacon of Team Empowerment.
And so that was an awesome conversation, guys, about leadership in the family unit. Please come out and join us for more. Don't forget, like Curtis says, like and subscribe. There's a lot more to come. There's a lot of value we have to offer here in the Beacon of Leadership community. We want to hear from you. We want you to join us. And like Vicky, don't be afraid to bring your topic to us. We love having these conversations, and there's so many ways we could be empowering you, our community out there, if you bring your topic and we share that with the people out there. So thank you, and until next time, better days ahead. Did you have something to add before we go, Vicky?
just thank you for having me on. I really appreciate being able to share my commitment with all of you around having leaders and family.
Mhm. And when you join us again next time, as you will, people will have a better opportunity to get to know you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.